Hello, everyone, and I'm really pleased to have with us today a friend of mine from back in the days where we were PhD mates at the University of Waikato, Sam, who's here today to tell us about his PhD to professional story. Sam, over to you to introduce yourself, and then I can't wait to get this conversation going.
Hey, kia ora koutou. My name is Sam, and I was a former student doing my PhD at the University of Waikato, together with Sherrie. We were in different departments, of course. I was in the management school, and Sherrie was pursuing education, right? Yeah. And yeah, I currently run an accounting firm. It's a professional accounting firm that does tax and compliance services and business advisory. And I've been a business owner for the past 4 years now.
Fantastic. So, Sam, look, a lot of our community members, PhD students, PhD graduates, they are probably thinking about, what next. I guess from where I've come from, my experience is that academic job openings are really slim, small, not always the one that you need at the moment. So, what were your aspirations when you were doing your PhD? Because I remember I wanted to be an academic. What about you?
Yeah, same here, Sherry. I come from a family where my mother has been a lifelong academic. She still is, and she's currently professor at the Sultan Qaboos University over in Oman. But as you can see, I grew up with a mother who was an academic, and I think she exposed me to the world of academia from a very, very young age. And I liked it. I was just like, oh wow, this is cool. You get paid to read books and tell people what to do. It's awesome. And so I think from a very young age, I had aspired to be an academic. And when I was 21 years old, I had my first teaching job at the University of Malaya. And then I just fully threw myself into academia. People told me to do my master's. I did my master's. Once I had my master's, then they told me like, oh, well, now you need to get a PhD. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll go and get a PhD, right? And folks are just like, yeah, once you get a PhD, you can get a job as a lecturer, blah blah blah, and then you can start building up towards becoming a professor. I'm pretty sure in my early 20s, when I was about 25, I was just like, yes, my goal is to become a professor and get tenureship at some university, and yeah, sit around drinking coffee, reading books, and feeling smart about myself. Yeah, but I think what I didn't realize was that there was a shift in the academic industry as a whole between the years 2010 to 2020. And and that happened while I guess I was still going through academia as a very junior academic. What was happening then was that there was a greater emphasis on publications. Universities were getting more obsessed about their rankings. And what I really loved about academia was really more the teaching rather than the research. And so it became difficult for people with a passion for teaching to actually excel in academia simply because there's more emphasis given towards research and writing and publication. And by the time I had completed my PhD, I didn't actually have enough journal publications to my name. I only had one or two. And apparently that wasn't enough to land myself even a junior lecturing position in most of the universities. There was just too much competition. The PhD market was flooded, and positions in academia were really, really hard to come by. And I guess perhaps, you know, um, I do accept fault in maybe not networking hard enough as well. But the bottom line is that I was told that I simply didn't have enough publications to get a job. And I was going like, man, I've spent like almost 4 years of my life um, doing this really awesome piece of research. And oh no, I moved it to a different cabinet. It's no longer sitting behind me, my thesis. But yeah, and you're telling me it's not good enough? Yeah.
Sam, I
And
just want to say I hear your
yeah,
story.
yeah,
Um, you know, when we were doing our PhD, we had countless of seminars, great
yeah,
speakers saying, do this, do that,
yeah,
publish this,
yeah,
publish that, and you're on your way. And, you know, my experience, I mean, I see so many sort of similar nuances and
mhm,
um, feelings of it's not good enough. You know, I did publish a few and I thought, okay, I'm starting
yeah,
out. But it was never enough. And then when I thought, okay, surely I've done all the right things. I've been to the conferences, as I'm sure
yeah,
you have. I've
yeah,
done some networking. I mean, how much networking can we do as a student? We don't have enough
yeah,
money to go around places.
yeah,
Yeah, it was quite frustrating only to realize, there's always someone else out there with more publications and more networks.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, and then and so yeah, that just really made it really, really clear to me after I got my PhD in 2017 that, well, okay, look, by the end of the day, I needed a job. I needed to put food on the table. I needed to feed my family. And so I fell back on my first degree, which was an accounting degree. And yeah, then I got a job at an accounting firm. And I was probably the most overqualified new hire in the firm. I was getting paid a junior accountant salary at a very, very entry basic level salary. But yeah, I just started. It was almost like I had to start all over again. Yeah, moving away from academia into professional work. Hmm.
Okay. How did you manage the transition? Um, you know, coming from, you know, the aspirations of wanting to be an academic and then transitioning to the professional, like you're more of like a job that was just about doing the work rather than writing about the work.
Yeah, I think it was hard because the working culture in professional versus academia is a lot different. In academia, especially if you're on the teaching and research side, it tends to be more relaxed. You come in when you want to, you do your work, you teach your classes, and you leave when you want to. There's no one's sort of like keeping an eye on what you're doing or breathing down your neck. Whereas in corporate, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of expectation to perform, and there's a lot of expectation to do things not necessarily the right way, but do things the prescribed way. And you're not really allowed to be creative. You're not really allowed to challenge the status quo. And I think in my first few accounting jobs, I did hear feedback that apparently I was acting like a bit of a know-it-all. I think, I mean, and again, I think coming from an academic background, I think it's quite natural that I think a lot of us who are brought up in academia have a tendency to think that we know better than other people, even if we're not actively acting that way. But I think it's just part of our personality.
And what did you do
Yeah.
that feedback? What was your kind of response to that?
Yeah, it's hard because I think for me, what I did was that I just actively observed the things I say and and I did my best to do things the way that I guess corporate culture dictates that I should do. And so learning corporate culture was really difficult. But at the same time, I think that natural sureness in myself, that natural confidence, did help me move on to better positions within the industry and and eventually to land positions with employers who actually liked being challenged. Mm,
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so
yeah.
glad that, you know, even though it might have felt like a bit of a step back. I love how you sort of was open to the situation that you were in,
Hmm.
uh, grabbed the opportunities, reflected, and moved on to better positions, and in a position where you felt your knowledge valued and treasured
Yes.
to be used
Yes.
by people you actually wanted to help. Cool. So what advice do you have for people, may or may not be in with an accounting background, who are at that stage where they're thinking, should I press on and do these contracts that may never come, or do I bite the bullet and get into a non-academic position?
That's a tough call, really. And excuse me.
That's you.
Thanks. It's a tough call, really. It does. I think your academic background matters. What field of study you're on does matter. I have a colleague, a former PhD colleague, who started together his PhD with me, and he desperately wanted to get out of academia, but his background was in linguistics and communications, and he could not find a pathway into the industry with those qualifications. Now, I don't have a background in linguistics, so I'm not aware of what sort of professional opportunities are available for someone with a background in linguistics. But he told me that, it's either academia or bust for him. Yeah. He's working back in Malaysia right now. He's not terribly happy with his job, but he says, hey, it's a job. I get paid. At least I'm lucky. Yeah.
Okay.
So so
No,
I guess the
thank
best advice,
you.
I think the best advice I can give is to search. If you're not keen on academia anymore, if you feel like academia opportunities have dried up, networking is super important, and networking outside of academia circles. So head over to local business groups, chambers of commerce, find out what sort of professional opportunities are available in your field of study. Yeah, I think I would say, like, for myself, having a degree in accounting is there's always demand for accounting. It's quite easy to go out there and say, like, oh, hey, look, there's an accounting firm. But if you have a more specialized field of study, like linguistics, for example, then you'll want to find out what sort of opportunities are available for someone with that kind of background, with that kind of degree, if academia is not working for you anymore.
Thanks, Sam. I think you
Yeah.
touched on a topic that's very common when we talk about careers. It's about transferable skills. What
Mm.
have you learned in linguistics or any field of study for that matter that has the kind of knowledge or the skills or the kind of background that would be useful in other contexts? I'm sorry to hear about your friend who didn't manage to find work related to linguistics. My background is actually in applied linguistics.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
there's
Okay. Yeah.
probably a lot of jobs that maybe they don't shout applied linguistics or linguistics on their
Mm-hmm.
job description,
Mm-hmm.
but they certainly talk about analytical mind,
Mm-hmm.
communication, writing. And that might have been an opportunity to explore jobs that would sort of resonate and reflect the kind of skills and knowledge that a person with that background has. Um, in any case, it's never a dead end. I always feel that whatever stage you are in your career, there's always something to look forward to uh, in the context of reflection, understanding yourself, and knowing where to from here. So, on that note, where to from here, Sam? What are kind of your aspirations now?
Well, suffice to say, I think I've given up on academia. And yeah, so right now I run my own business. I run my own accounting firm. I've taken the lessons that I've learned from the industry, and I've set up my own accounting firm. And what I've done, I guess, with my own setup is I've blended the flexibility of academic work, but together with the goals-oriented and projects-oriented focus that the corporate sector has taught me. I still get to do what I love, which is I get to talk to people, I get to teach people. And a lot of the skills I picked up during my PhD, those really analytical skills, having a keen eye for details, and being able to make simple, complicated concepts, especially when it comes to tax and accounting, has actually made our firm very popular with our clients. Yeah, because it's all too common a comment about the accounting industry that, oh, my accountant just makes things complicated. Like it's too difficult. And so I think coming from the academic background, I'm able to create a more accessible means of approaching accounting and finance. In fact, our blog, www.thecomicaccountant.com, is a testament to the principles of simplifying accounting and finance. And I can definitely say that the skills that I picked up during my PhD has definitely helped me to get to where I am today.
Wonderful. I
Yeah.
really love your story about how, you're sort of reflecting in a PhD. On one hand, you
Mm,
say, I've probably given up academia, but actually
mm.
the kind of skills and the knowledge and the insights that you've gained from the experience doesn't go away. In fact, nothing is wasted. And I'm so pleased to hear you've taken accounting to a whole new level, the funny level, the simple level. Um, I'll be your first customer, man. Like someone tells me all of this, and I go like, whoa, do I need another PhD to understand what you've just told me? No, I'll go to Sam because he's got to simplify it for me. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time, Sam. Really appreciate you, sharing your journey, your really candid thoughts, but also love the energy that you bring to your work and the fact that you found a place and a space for yourself that has made all that hard work paid off. So thank you so much, Sam, and we'll hope to chat with you again sometime soon.
Thank you, Sherrie.